Welcome back to What's Shaking. We have a very special episode here. We have our sister Bayyan, special guest. I'm gonna let her introduce herself
Oh,
to give a little bit of the sister's perspective on growing up Muslim uh, in New Haven, being black. A lot of different nuances there. We're gonna let her kind of introduce herself and talk more on that. Bayyan, welcome to the show.
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. So, in terms of introducing myself, I'm Bayyan Jackson-Shaheed. I was born and raised in New Haven, and I have been here probably all my life until I went away for college. So,
Yeah, my
Okay.
first question would be just starting off early in stages. What is your first experience as far as being a Muslim female in America?
so I've been wearing hijab since I was 7. Um, However, my dad at the time was not a Muslim, so when I would go and visit with my dad, my parents were divorced, I would not wear hijab. So I think that my first realization or really understanding what hijab was probably around that time. So I knew it was something that, a girl had to do at some point in her life and that, it was a choice. And it was something that you had to stick with because I do remember there being some really like negative talk around me taking it off when I was actually with my father. And that probably lasted until I was about like 11, that I would like, take it off in certain instances when I was with my father and then, put it back on when I went to my mom's house. Actually, one time I remember I was at my grandmother and there was a rally with Brother Imam Zaid downtown.
Downtown.
And I did not have my hijab on. And I remember being in a car and I saw you guys, in the rally. And I grabbed a blanket from the back of my grandmother's car
Oh
to
wow.
put it on my head.
Right,
And she was really upset with me, like, take the blanket off your head. But I
right.
was really cognizant of like putting it on because I felt like I was around the Muslims and I needed to cover. So I think that was probably my first, relationship with like hijab and really feeling like I wanted to wear it at that time. Like, this is something I should be doing.
Wow.
A question just to piggyback off it. How was it being torn between the two? Like, so did you
Mm.
feel like, you know, at that time, did you relate more to Islam or were you confused? And what kind of helped you, choose Islam?
So that's a really good question because I think a lot of young people are in this situation where they have a parent that's Muslim and then a parent that's not.
Right.
What a lot of people don't know is that when you're being raised with a parent that's not Muslim, even if they're not religious, a lot of times you will still, because I went to church when I was younger,
Okay.
but I didn't go to church with my dad. He really wasn't religious. It was with my grandmother. So
Okay.
my grandmother would take us to church every Sunday, and we was doing Sunday school while we were at, Saturday madrasa, and then it
Wow.
was like Sunday school.
Okay.
Wow.
And literally the same type of teaching dynamic. And I probably could have been confused, but I think what didn't confuse me was the fact that I live with my mom.
Okay.
So the majority of people that, I was around most of the time, they were Muslim. And so it was just like I kind of, and I also felt like Islam answered some questions that I had when I was a kid.
Hmm.
So I would ask my stepfather questions and he would answer them. When I would
Okay.
ask the Sunday school teacher questions, they usually would just tell me that it's about faith, it's about love. And
Got it.
so it really didn't answer any of the questions, especially as I got a little bit older.
Mhm.
And so then it was just a natural inclination for me to be Muslim.
Could you elaborate a little bit on what those questions were that you felt were answered, if you remember?
I mean, I asked a lot about the Trinity.
Mhm.
Like, I just really couldn't understand what the Trinity was. And, they would explain it to me in methodology. I would ask questions really revolving around Jesus because we were taught that Jesus was not God.
Mhm.
But then in the church, it was a different methodology. So I would ask a lot of those kind of questions around him.
Mhm.
And I think that um, it's those are not questions either that people ask or either, you know, it's not something that's expected from a child. It's kind of like, like when you're being raised, it's like you do this because this is what
Right.
we're
Told
doing.
you to do it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
do it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like a
Yeah.
child is not going to keep asking. And then if you don't really understand, then they kind of just give you like the generic answers. But that just
Right.
wasn't enough for me.
Mm. No, that's great. So like when you were go back to like the Sunday school, did you get Like, was there like a little pushback on like, why are you asking these questions, or like, or did they send you back to the masjid with questions? Like you were pretty much getting questions from the masjid to go ask them. Were you getting that on the other end?
No, not really. Because to be honest with you, I really had fun in church besides Sunday school. So I honestly, was there, and it was a feeling of like community kind of. So I felt like I was getting more of that than just the religious teaching. So that's why I think, I just kind of went towards the path of Islam too, because I felt like it was more like we were really doing like education, with like our teachings, especially when we were younger, through Saturday Madrasa. There, it was like, yeah, there was a Sunday school portion of it, but it was really, when they're doing the sermon, and then people are, shouting, and then usually there's some sort of food, and it's kind of like a family.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, I enjoyed the family aspect of it, but in terms of just logically for me, Islam was like the easier choice, or the most logical choice.
So, like, I'm sure you have friends, like in your church friends, and you had Muslim friends. Like, could you talk a little bit about that dynamic? Where did maybe some of your church friends may ask you questions about Islam or want to come around, or?
Well, to be honest, they didn't know I was Muslim. Because when I was at church, I mean, I wore the little church dress with my little, and I used to like my little church dress now. They had lace and everything on it with my little lace socks.
You wear the hat too?
No, I didn't wear a hat now, but they do my hair in the little. So they didn't know anything about, me being Muslim.
Okay.
By the way, my dad's family when I was younger, they would say, you're also your father's religion too. So like people just thought we were Christian because my dad was Christian. And then when I want my mom's Muslim.
Yeah.
So at what point did the Christianity stop and you become completely Muslim and you embarked on that lifestyle?
I think, probably around, I'm going to tell you when it was. When my mom asked my dad to stop giving us gifts during Christmas.
Okay.
Like for my grandmother, stop giving us gifts during Christmas because we don't celebrate Christmas. And if they could give us the gifts like in January or like at a different date. I think at that point is when we stopped going to church. We stopped, really celebrating, the holidays with the family. And then, it was an Islamic lifestyle from that point.
How old were you around that time?
Probably around 12.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Got it.
So were you just so like at 12, like you're about to get ready to go into high school, like how was that? Like
That's when we're middle school, right?
12?
Yeah,
That's like the
middle
end of
school.
middle school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all know my stepfather. So, I mean, we were really strict. So, to be honest with you, well, my first year of high school, though, I was homeschooled. So I didn't have, the traditional high schooling, for freshman year. I didn't go to public school until sophomore year.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just feel like, well, actually, you know what? Repeat the question.
No, I was just trying to say, like, so we can go right when you went to public school, or you can even go back into like what that transition was like when you were in homeschool and then going to public school, because that's, for us, we got to wear kufi, but that ain't nothing compared to you wearing a hijab, so like, what is that like with boys and like,
Well, I saw y'all's interviews and I had none of those experiences.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it was monkey in the middle with the kufi. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't know if it was monkey in the middle with the hijab or anything like that.
No.
So I know women don't play, so they probably think twice before.
Yeah.
They
When
grab
I was
something
in
like,
middle school, everybody knew me. I was able to wear jeans. I wore shirts. I had a hijab on, but I used to wear my little earrings.
So you were saying you was popular?
No, I was not popular.
You
wasn't.
just said everybody knew you.
I'm talking about everybody because we were in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? We were in the neighborhood.
She's being humble. I love it. I love
people that
it.
came
I
to
was
Bastion
not
from middle
popular,
school, they're
but
like, "Oh, I know Ebony. Yeah, she's cool." You know.
I mean, they just
you wear
they
hijab,
knew
people
me.
know who you are.
Yeah. They knew me. But when I got to high school, people thought I was a foreigner.
Oh wow!
And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, it's Ebony from Truth.
Right.
Like I'm so confused, and I think it was because at that time I had to wear abaya, and my stepfather wouldn't allow me to wear jeans anymore.
Right.
So I had to wear, the traditional, jilbab to school.
Oh, okay,
And
that's a
so
whole nother
I
level,
think
yeah.
like people were just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
At
Like,
that
They
time, that
knew
was
you.
so foreign, though. Like, to be
Yeah.
honest,
I
to see a
mean-
black person in a black school wearing, Joe Babbitt, stuff like that, that was like
Yeah.
unheard
And
of.
I was
you know?
the
So,
only
like,
one.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
nobody doing that.
So
yeah.
I had like 2 friends.
Wow.
And 3 people I talked to probably in Latin class. And I was like the biggest nerd. So to be honest with you, had the most terrible high school experience ever.
Wow.
Wow.
And in terms of boys, there was no interaction whatsoever.
Wow.
Like they were not, I mean, they probably thought I was pretty. They used to say things about my eyes. It was one situation where, some girls tried to fight me over something crazy because I was at Hill House. So,
Yeah.
I mean, some girls tried to fight me over something and they were talking about me in the bathroom. My cousin, who was popular, was like, that's my cousin. They were like, that's your cousin?
Yeah.
And, but other than that, I had no experience at all. I didn't go to prom because it was just known that
Yeah, we didn't go to
we
prom.
don't go to prom.
yeah.
So I didn't have any boyfriends. There was none of that. Actually, I was probably my father's best dream because I didn't drag him through any of that.
Right.
I mean, there was the transition. The transition was easy. I came home from school. I watched my siblings. I cooked dinner. Like I was like, I didn't have time for that either. And we didn't have money, so I had to stay focused on my studies because I had to get a scholarship to go to college, and that's what I did.
So let's back up a little bit because just to give context, like, do you want? I mean, if you feel comfortable like talking about like, your family, like, you have a pretty big family. Like what that was like, what that dynamic was.
So
like.
I remember them as the Black Brady Bunch. You know what I'm
pretty
saying?
much. Yeah.
Like as they were not just a black family, they were very popular just for the size of the family and them being Muslim. When you added the 2 of them, it was like everybody knew your family. Like everybody knew Haven knew your family, everybody in the Master knew your family, and it was like. It was a big deal.
Y'all rolled deep.
Because at that time you didn't really see a lot of blended families like that big. So what was the dynamic of it? You're grouping up with other family members. You're Muslim. There's a lot of different challenges. Obviously, when you're raising a family, a household of Muslim is it's a little more strict. So you got to follow different rules. Different parenting. So what was that? Growing up like that.
I think that it was hard at times. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. I'm the oldest of 7 children from my mom and the second oldest of 12. So blended all together is 12 of us.
Yeah.
So
It's a football team.
Listen, if I have 12 kids, I ain't gonna have no money. I can tell you that right now.
I got 3, man.
Right, you ain't getting no Jordans. So 12, you automatically broke. Period. You know what I'm saying? Millionaire don't matter.
It was hard, but I think it was also fun, and we relied on each other a lot for things. And we had a big extended family, so I think that I enjoyed growing up in a large family. Our family is really diverse,
Right.
and so I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think some of the challenges that I had growing up is that the girls always outweighed the number of boys. However, I always felt that the boys got more privileges than we did. And so, like, even when I was in high school, me and my brother Rashad are like a year apart, maybe. Yeah, like a year apart or like a couple months apart. But, I was like, okay, I'm going to grade above him. And why is he out? It's 10 o'clock.
Right.
I'm sorry, what's going on? And I can't even go with friends.
Yeah.
So that used to really, really get me upset, right? But, that's just how it was.
I think back then it was like that because I know my mom went through that. It was like with her brothers, they could do whatever they wanted. But for the women, they were always overprotective. Like, nothing goes good on that
but
night.
y'all
It's
was
after
the
10
ones
o'clock.
that was reckless.
Right,
We were good.
right.
So I mean, to be honest
Well, that's
with
because
you,
y'all had structure. We did. They're like,
To be
go do
honest
whatever you
with
want.
you.
Okay, I'm going to do whatever I want.
like they should have had a little bit more trust in us.
Right. And I agree. I think it was a little overprotective.
But do you think it's more like a trust or more like, trying to take care or like protect?
Okay, so protection just goes. It's the thing is that when you protect somebody so much and then they have to go into the real world, then they don't know how to act.
Right.
And so that's
Right.
what happened
Absolutely.
to me when I got to college.
Mhm.
I felt like I was on lock and key at home. I mean, I'm not saying that I never went anywhere
Yeah.
because my mom did allow me to go like with, a friend in high school. She had a car. We would go out to lunch and stuff like that sometimes. But it's not like I had the freedom like,
Right.
like my brothers did. Like that just, it just wasn't the same. But experiencing that, in high school and then going to college. So I'm gonna tell y'all a story.
Yeah, go
Okay.
elaborate
I'm
on
gonna
that
tell
a
you
little
story,
more.
right? But I'm not gonna, do too much because my husband's probably gonna watch. But so the first night they dropped me off. It was Grandpa Mustafa, my mom. They dropped me off at Rutgers. I went to Rutgers.
Yeah.
They, everything's coming up in my room. They're taking all my furniture in there, and across the hall, my mom was like, "Are those boys' names in the dorm's door, like right across the hall from you?" So she was like, "Oh no, nope. You're going home. You're not coming to Rutgers anymore." And I'm like, I was freaking out. They started packing my stuff up and bringing it back downstairs.
Are you serious?
They started packing my stuff up and bringing
They
it
didn't
back
know it was
downstairs.
co-ed dorms?
They were like, "You're done. You're not coming here."
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh my god!" So I'm like freaking out.
Wow.
So the RA was like, "What's going on here?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, my parents, they won't let me come to school because there's like guys across the hall." So she's like talking to them and like, "Listen, you instill these values in your children.
Right.
You have to understand. You got to trust her. Technically she's an adult. Blah 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 blah. Has she ever done anything to disappoint you?" And my mom was like, "No." She was like, "Well, you need to put some trust in her." So literally, they let me stay, and they were like, "Bayyan, you know how it is. You just have to maintain your values." And I was like, "Cool, I'm good."
Right.
Literally, they left that day, and they were like, my roommates were like, "Yo, there's like this party going on." There
But
was
that's what I
there
think
was a
anybody's
time
gonna
that I
do.
just became like this, like I didn't have an experience in high school. Everybody's gonna know my name. I'm like gonna be the most popular person, and I really was. Like I was in all the clubs, not those kind of clubs, but like,
I know
the-
what you mean. I know
yeah.
the college clubs.
yeah, like Haitian Student Association. I was in like MSA. I was on the like board for
part
our
Haitian?
dorms. I'm not. I'm
Okay.
part
He was just
Haitian.
in every club.
Yeah,
But,
I'm in every
well,
club.
because one of my best friends, was, so I was there. But anyway, those are the challenges that you face when you don't give your children the ability to say these are the things you can do. It can't always be haram, 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 haram. Like it can't be that way
Right.
because
I agree.
then when they get out of your fold, they're gonna be like,
gonna try
okay,
everything.
I'm gonna do what I want to
Right.
do.
You're curious.
And exactly.
Right,
Instead of
right.
allowing them some freedom, be like, okay, well, you can't do that, but these are the things we can do. Or you could do this, 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 this. And then the kid doesn't feel like they're restricted.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, introduce them to the things that they can do versus keep telling them what they can't do.
Yeah.
But it's tough. I mean, going to college, I don't care what they did. We probably was all gonna party. It's just too
But
tempting
I think
when
it's
you get
because
there.
of the way we were
But
raised.
I agree.
It's a part of
so
it,
like
yeah.
I was gonna ask you, like you joined all the clubs. Did you join the MSA?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
So like when I got to college, when I first saw like the MSA, and I was like, the sisters and brothers are sitting close to each other. Like it was like almost like
Right,
PTSD from being in the
right,
masjid.
right,
Like
right,
and it was
yeah.
just
That's a
I
good point.
always thought it was weird.
Right.
And then now I understand it's just because that's just the way we were raised. And
Right.
you know.
I agree. That was the same thing for
And
me.
those kids weren't
It was
wilding out either.
Right,
Because I knew a
right.
lot.
And there
of
were
them.
some girls that didn't have hijab on either, and they were comfortable being in the MSA.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw that. I was like,
Right.
okay.
It was very accepting. Anybody that wanted to join, there was no problem. No one was judged. So it was.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time we all experienced that because there was always some type of judgment, no matter what you did.
100%.
And it was kind of everybody welcomed you with open arms. It was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But then, like you said, then there was other clubs, and sometimes you stray away from the MSA.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So they weren't doing really exciting stuff. We might go out for bowling and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of a little bit of the difference. So.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome story, and I'm sure there's many that can relate to that.
I know.
right.
I was just like, I don't know. I just think, sometimes you got to go through things, to get to where you are now. And it happened. I'm not saying, I'm over here like, woohoo, it happened.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, it happened. And then
Right.
I had to learn from some of those experiences because some of those choices weren't the right choices at the time because, that lifestyle led me to fail a lot of my classes.
Mm.
So, you know, that first semester was not a pretty semester. Like, you know, I was there to do medicine, and I wasn't able to, you know, continue doing that, especially with the grades that I was getting, because I was so involved with the social life.
Yeah.
But that was something that I missed. So do I regret it? I don't want to say that I
You
regretted
wanted it that much. It was like, I'm willing to risk
Exactly.
this because I
and
haven't
that,
had
see,
it.
that wasn't good though,
Yeah.
because you know, there could have been a balance.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, at what point did you like feel like, you know, okay, I got this lesson, I understand it, and I'm gonna get back on my, because obviously you're a well
I want to
accomplished.
say like maybe like the first semester of sophomore year.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you had to
That
get a
was
year.
like-
You had to
that was a
get,
quick run.
yeah,
That
you
was
had to get
good.
a
That
year
was a
out,
quick
a year
run.
out of your system.
Yeah.
It took a lot of us a lot longer
Well,
than
you
that.
know what
Right?
it was? It was
Freshman
my
year, that's
grades.
it?
It was my grades.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you had to
And
pick
I remember
it up.
telling
Right.
my dad, like, oh, he was like, what's your GPA? And I told him what my GPA was, and he was like, what? Yeah, I mean, you know my dad.
I was like, everybody know her dad. He don't play.
He was like, what? Like, you're not doing medicine with
Right,
like that, you know?
right,
So it
right.
was an eye opener, and I was like, okay, I didn't come to college to fail.
Mm.
Like, I got to get myself
Right.
together.
Now, do you think part of his like discipline? Because I do feel like sometimes when you have strict parents like that, they do keep you on the straight path. You know, we don't understand it at that time, but sometimes it's great to have someone that's like always telling you, like, listen, you're straying away. You know, like so. Do you feel like some of that was a good part of it too? You know, I know, like you said, at the time, it's like, yo, come on, you know.
Well, so I feel like my dad, I feel like because of him, I think about education the way I do.
Okay.
So I feel like him just continuously saying, like, regardless if my path changed and it took me longer to get to where I wanted, I still felt like I had that determination, because it was always in my mind that this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. And it was because of him when it came to education.
Mhm.